Hello and welcome to ZTN for this special broadcast in partnership with the Media Alliance of Zimbabwe. I am Owen Kaura. Now today, the 13th of February 2022, is the International World Radio Day. The objective of World Radio Day is to raise public awareness on the importance of radio and to encourage decision makers to use it to provide access to information and to improve international cooperation among broadcasters. Now, of course, radio is one of the biggest means of communication here in Zimbabwe, which reaches the largest parts of the country, especially the rural and remote areas as well. Now, World Radio Day presents an opportunity to showcase what radio can do, and this year's global theme is Radio and Trust. To commemorate this day, in studio, we are joined by Nigel Nyamutumbu, Media Alliance of Zimbabwe Coordinator. Nigel, hello and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Great. Now, we also have from the Zimbabwe Association of Community Radio Stations, that's ZACRAS, the chairperson, Pelagia Kapuya. Pelagia, welcome.
Thank you, Owen.
Great. Now, from the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe, that's BAZ, we've got the Director of Broadcast Content Monitoring and Compliance, that's Susan Makombera. Susan, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Owen.
Great. And a colleague, Perfect Longwane, veteran radio broadcaster. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Owen. Thank you for having me.
Great. And from the Ministry of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services, we have Jonathan Gandari. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm privileged to be here this morning.
Great. Looks like all is set. The panel is set and rearing it to go. But I'm just going to start from a very, very simple place. And I'd like to start with you, Nigel. World Radio Day. What is it?
Well, World Radio Day is an opportunity proclaimed in 2012 by the United Nations General Assembly, recognizing that radio is the most accessed medium of communication globally. And also, even in Zimbabwe, radio is the most used medium of communication, whether you look at it from perspective of the audiences, whether also look at it from the perspective of platforms, that is the availability of a multiplicity of stations that one could access them. So radio is indeed central to the media. It is a critical event on the media calendar, and it is an opportunity for us to celebrate some certain milestones within the radio broadcasting sector, but also to reflect on the journey ahead as we look at the future of radio going forward.
Now, of course, in the introduction, I touched a bit about the theme. Maybe you can tell us more about this year's commemorations.
Yes, Radio and Trust is the global theme, which is hinged on three areas. One area being the component of credibility and how more and more audiences are shifting and are drifting from accessing information from mainstream media platforms, radio included. And that question also is relevant even in terms of Zimbabwe, where we want to be transforming our media to ensure that it regains the trust and confidence of citizens, the trust and confidence of audiences. So that is one component that looks at the radio in this converged environment, radio in this era where there is multicasting, where news is now moving faster and information faster than possible, and where we have seen consumers changing information patterns. So that's one component. The other being around how there is an opportunity for radio to enhance its relevance by enhancing its accessibility to persons with disabilities, for example. The opportunities that arises from where now radio cannot just be conventional, as was the case in the analog era, but where radio can also now become visual, and where also radio can now, converge with a lot of platforms. And lastly, the question of sustainability, which remains at the heart of the conversations on media, notwithstanding the challenges brought about by COVID-19, but also how radio can be transformed into an industry in itself and contribute to the GDP and to the development of the country.
You raise many important questions there, which we'll definitely discuss as the program goes on as well. You raise the issue of sustainability, you raise the issue of new media as well. But for now, I just want to come to you, Jonathan, in terms of the ministry as well. I know that you're leading this event. So maybe how are you engaging with communities when it comes to radio? He's mentioned that slowly audiences are shifting. But you as a ministry, how are you engaging with the communities?
So to start off the conversation, I think I need to put it on record that the appetite for radio is very high in this country. It is high both from a national point of view, provision of national radio stations which have a reach which is national, but also from a provincial point of view. That's why we have provincial radio stations, and also from a community radio station point of view, and from a campus radio stations point of view. So the appetite is very high, and for a reason. Now your question is, how are we engaging with communities? We work through our agencies, and one of them, I'm happy, is here, BAS. They are mandated to train, to capacitate, to give licenses, and to do a number of things. But as government, we quality assure what is going on. For example, we have been going around meeting the communities that have been awarded community radio station. Our interest is to find out their capabilities. And as government, our interest is to see how we can mobilize resources for them. And also, the second interest is to see the fairness in the accessibility of the frequencies, and also the representation, particularly if we are focusing on community radio stations. We don't want community radio stations that will end up as an individual radio station. They have to be community. So there are a number of interventions, therefore, that will come as a result of our interaction with the communities, and to make sure that the languages in which these radio stations are going to be the medium of communication, and also to make sure that even as they use this medium, they are able to articulate government policies. They are also able to articulate the issues, the heroes of communities, and to highlight those in a fair manner, which gives information.
Now, naturally, community radio stations have already taken the center stage from the opening remarks being given by Nigel and Jonathan. So that brings you, Pelagia, into the conversation as well. Yeah. In terms of ZACRAS, he has mentioned what the ministry is doing in terms of community engagement. But as ZACRAS, what are you doing in terms of the same?
All right. So thank you very much, Owen. And thank you to the colleagues who have already opened up and started, looking at issues to do with community radio. So as the Zimbabwe Association of Community Radio Stations, we work with community radio initiatives and stations. If I say initiatives, I mean those groupings or those communities that are still vying for licenses. They are not yet licensed, but they are already doing radio work. And stations are the ones that have been licensed. So we have 14 of them, and we are working with both groupings, the ones that have been licensed and the ones that are yet to be licensed. Because the ones that are yet to be licensed are using alternative means to make sure that information gets to the communities. And the ones that have been licensed, we are very happy because these year's commemorations of World Radio Day are the first for us to have when we have a first community radio that is broadcasting, which is Afusheni, which is in Chiredzi. So we are happy about that. And as ZACRAS, we are providing training as well, in partnership with BAS. And on the eve of the commemorations in Chiredzi, we are bringing together all the licensed community radio stations, whether they are our members or they are not our members, all of them. They will be there, and we are offering training in terms of radio production, equipment management, financial management, sustainability, and things like that. And also because community radio is a special kind of radio, and it's sort of new in our environment, and we need to make sure that the principles of community radio stations are, inculcated in the people that are running these community radio stations, especially to look at things like ownership, inclusivity, credibility, and with this year's theme, which talks about radio and trust, we want to make sure that community radios really are community radios that can be trusted.
And of course, we'll discuss more about the issues that you've raised there, Pelagia, as well. You also raised pertinent issues. But then that brings in the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe, that's BAZ. Susan, from your end,
yes,
what is your role in all this?
okay. Our role in all this, since we are the regulator, we are looking at all radio stations. We've got the local commercial, we've got the national commercial, we've got the campus radio, and the new baby, the community radio. So what we are doing is we are regulating all the radio stations. There are certain local content conditions which cut across all the radio stations, like the 75% local music content, the 10% regional content music. And then when it comes like to languages, we are all saying all radio stations should be using the languages spoken within a community. It can be a local station. We encourage languages spoken maybe within that local community. And then mainly with the community, that's mainly where we are focusing on language. We are focusing on the cultures. We are focusing on everything that's going on within that community. So that is what we're encouraging. We are focusing whether beat music. Yes, we say 75% local music for all radio stations. But for the community radio, our new baby, we are saying we want music from within that community. We are trying to encourage the artists from the community to take part in whatever they have, they can do. And we are talking about radio and trust. How do the viewers, the consumers trust the radio? The radio is to be truthful, has to be fair, has to be complete. Whatever programming has to be complete. So we are encouraging them to have fair programs, balanced, accurate. And what are we encouraging them as well? When it comes to the community, we are encouraging community participation. That is what we call a community radio. We are gathering content from the community. My colleagues have said, and we also, we've trained, we've gone there out to train. So we are helping them, shaping up their community radios. Mainly, we are talking about radio this time, but we do have other forms of platforms of radio, but maybe we are giving more emphasis on the community, which has been underprivileged when it comes to radio. Some have been receiving radio from across our borders. So we are happy that we have this new baby. And much as we are concentrating on these other ones, we have this baby which we are trying to groom, because this baby is serving our community, our grassroots. Yes, whereas the local commercial and the national commercial are all national, they are all up there, and this community down there. So they need to be served. We are also looking at what exactly are they, programs are they giving to the community when they receive them from the community. It's an interaction between the community and their radio station. It's their radio station. So that is also the message we are telling even the campus radios. The campus radios, we are telling them that you are involved with the campus, and then within a radius from the campus radio. So we are also talking about participation of the students and programming, which is meant for the students. So that is what we are regulating. What type of language are we talking about?
Maybe before we get to the type of language.
I will go on and on.
You're a communicator, so definitely you will go on and on. But just before we get to the type of programs, it seems like everything is hunky-dory from where we're sitting here. And I get a sense of everything is fine, but then perfect. You've been in the industry for a very long time. We can actually classify you as a veteran radio broadcaster.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. What has your experience been as a radio broadcaster on the ground?
Thank you so much, Owen. Maybe to start with is to say that obviously radio is transforming. From the time that we started, Nigel spoke about the convergency. And we see that happening very fast and quick. And when you look at radio in the traditional sense, you'll see that really there is a lot of work that radio must do to ensure that it moves with the times. If it does not do that, then we find that radio may, at some point, become irrelevant. So my experience has been radio itself, critical as it may, in terms of giving people information, it also needs to speak to the changes that we are having, technological or otherwise. And I know the regulator spoke about issues of 75%, and as a practitioner myself, you find that at times we feel that the 75% local content is somehow hindering in terms of giving people the programming that they want.
Why do you think it's like that?
Okay, so a product is, for you to be able to sell a product, it must be a product that people hunger for, people want to have. So if you, yes, it is low, there is nothing we can do about it, but at the end of the day, my thinking is that maybe we need to reduce that a little bit, the threshold, instead of 75, maybe go to 50.
So it's a good thing the regulator and the ministry are actually here. So
It's not going to happen.
there is your answer there.
Yeah.
So it's your round of yes.
Because you know, when you ask people around, as much as it helps to promote local content, talent, and production, you find that people, when you ask them around, they tell you, your music is boring at times.
All right. Maybe just before I come to you, Pelagia, I need Jonathan to quickly, of course you had made your point clear, it's not going to happen, but maybe why?
Yeah, well, I'm not persuaded by the argument that local consumers would like to consume foreign music more than they consume the local music. Unless there's a study that he's going to point me to, I'm not going to be persuaded by that. And also to say that you started by asking whether there are challenges in there. We know there are challenges, but as government, we will work through the fault lines and get it done. We will not back up. We will not back off because we have problems. But to come back to this idea of whether people, I mean, music is a way of communication, is a medium. Whether the folks in the rural areas will listen to one big artist from America and understand their music better than they would understand the local music, it's never like that. It's never like that. We know music is an international language in its own, in the arrangement and all the other things. But our stories matter, our stories are more valuable to us because through music we celebrate our own innovation, our own lives, our own ingenuity. And we love to hear that more. It's not just a question of the guitars, it's the question of the message, the heritage.
There we go. Well, answered very well there from my end. So it brings you, Pelagia, in. Now, the new baby that we're talking about here, community radio stations, in your opinion, here in Zimbabwe, are they serving their purpose?
That question, Owen, might be difficult to answer at this stage because, as you might know, most of them have not gone on air yet.
Well, the ones that have gone on air.
It's just one that has gone on air. But if I'm talking about what they have been doing in terms of alternative means to provide information to communities, I think they are. They are, but more can be done. There are a lot of challenges that they face in terms of making sure that, the communities access information and they express their freedom, to information. So I think I can say that because of their makeup and what they should do, they serve that purpose. But we need to ensure that, yes, indeed, that purpose is served in, taking care of issues to do that hinder, legal issues, operational issues, and things like that.
I'll just throw the same question to you, Nigel, as well. Do you think community radio stations, however many we have here so far, are they serving the purpose? But I also want you to tie it in with this question here. In terms of when you started the program, you see, the theme is radio and trust. Now, how does radio also remain the most trusted medium of communication? Maybe you can just walk us through that.
Yes, I think my departure point to some of the issues that you raise follows some critical, in my view, submissions that Perfect Whiz on the ground, as it were, who is practicing, is raised. The question of how radio is resonating with the audience it serves. I think we know we as a country we do have our aspirations as obtained in the constitution. We do have certainly diverse culture and all that we may want to continue to augment and even go as far as exporting and expanding. But there's a critical discourse when we then now talk of the question of trust. The moment that law, for instance, does not speak to practice, or the moment that law does not resonate with the lived realities of the audiences that we are trying to serve. For example, for a commercial entity, such as where my colleague is currently serving and practicing, there is real need, if it's an investment into the quality of the product, with the music, with the news, with the documentary, then let us begin to shift our focus and arguments towards that. If it's going to be addressing in terms of the law, for example, we have always submitted that it's now time that the Broadcasting Services Act, it is now not only outdated, but is also not living to the demands of this converged industry and so forth. Let us begin to move towards that. And that will also make your question even more relevant of how that community radio is going to play a distinguished role from the platforms that are already existing in it being owned and driven by the community at all levels.
And of course, you raise very pertinent issues there. One of them, which is very, very critical, the issue of outdated laws and regulations. And naturally, that brings in Susan. Susan, what are you doing to address the situation?
Owen, I think we've done quite a lot. We've repealed some sections of the Act. We are still in the process of repealing other sections which we feel are outdated. I think my boss here will agree. But what I still believe in is our law is trying to protect our consumer. Yes, we might say our law maybe is irrelevant at times. I still believe that the law is trying to protect the consumer there. In terms of like the 75%, we do, I think recently our ministry has just come up with a content creation, trying to revamp local content creation. I think we can make it if we want to make up the 75%.
Great.
We do have local content everywhere because we are the locals, we are the Zimbabweans, we do have our content.
And naturally, that brings you, Jonathan, in radio and trust, laws, and where we are going as a nation, well, as the world. Things are changing, and laws need to be changed. The medium is changing, audiences are changing. We've got younger audiences as well. What are you doing as a ministry to cater for example, the youths?
Now, from a ministry point of view, we are policy oriented. We provide the environment, and then the practitioners play out and make sure that they tap into the interests of their audiences. They do their audience surveys, they appeal to a certain section, and then they do that. So the tastes and the persuasions are catered for by the radio stations. Ours is a policy issue. The issues that you are raising of, for example, whether we should lower down from 75% to some other percentage, are issues that we would be willing to entertain. But people will only know the taste of a mango if they have tasted it. If you don't expose our people to the local music, to the local drama, to the local skits, and you expose them to a certain culture, they will know that and they will like that because that's what is available. What we are saying is, when we're saying 75%, we are not saying do not use international culture or international music. No, no, no. We are just saying let's have our own local music join the conversation and let the people have a choice. What we can't have is 90% international and 10% our own conversations. It can't happen.
Now, the interesting bit is we've got the practitioner in studio. So maybe perfect.
Yeah.
You said from a policy perspective, they've laid the groundwork. And it's now up to you as the practitioner to implement.
Yeah.
Are you happy? And maybe you can just walk us through how radio has evolved.
Okay, before I touch on how radio has evolved, I like the point that Jonathan raises, that at the end of the day, the practitioner is the one that then interacts with the consumers. And we know what the consumers want. When we say we want to have a shift in terms of the percentage, we're not saying let's have 100% or 10% local content. No. That's not the request. The request is, or the demand is, we want to be able to allow our consumers to have the product that they yearn for. What product are they yearning for? It is that product that will lead them into trusting the radio. And for example, what my brother has just said, that as a commercial entity, obviously if you continue to churn out something that the consumer is not interested in. Radio survives, commercial radio especially survives on advertisements. And we want to see corporates coming on board and advertising with us. But they only can do that when we have the listeners. They only can do that when we give them the product that they want.
But,
and we say,
so let me just, earlier on, Jonathan made a very important point as well. Have you done any scientific research towards this? Or do you know of any scientific research to the issues that you're raising?
Obviously, probably it may not at this stage be scientific, but because we interact with the people every day, we listen to what they say, right? And I think that as a way forward, we may need to then carry out that research.
I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Maybe that brings you, Nigel, in as well. In terms of the surveys that have been done, and I know you're privy to some of these surveys, scientific surveys. What's there on the ground?
Absolutely. I think the last survey in itself was the Information and Media Panel of Inquiry, IMPI, done by none other than the ministry itself, which speaks broader to the context of the quality of the content. Ultimately, even with the global theme, and then also perhaps the local theme, which we are rallying in Zimbabwe with the theme that are connecting radio with the communities. It's about ensuring that the product that is churned out at the end of the day, whether it is a product that is locally originated or that is produced by locals in the diaspora. You see, the thing is also radio has so far even diversified to the extent where you might have more audiences tuning in from Australia than the ones that are in Zarabani, for instance. That is how radio is evolving and how even audience patterns are shifting. So we need to be looking at this more critically.
More critically indeed, and I think we need to have more discussions like this. One program definitely is not enough. So we've got exactly 2 minutes left. So in those 2 minutes, your closing remarks, and then maybe let me start with you, Nigel. 30 seconds, and then I'll just go around your closing remarks. Nigel, in under 10 seconds.
Under 10 seconds, radio belongs with the people. And anything that we are going to do with the law and so forth has to resonate with the people.
Your 10 seconds up. Pelaji.
Okay, I would like to say that as much as we appreciate the efforts that have been done in making sure that communities have access to information and the freedom of expression, there's still more communities that need licensing. So we need not, ignore that and make sure that at least more communities are given license to broadcast.
Great. Susan.
Yes, I still believe that we need regulation to protect our local culture, our local content. Look who's ruling the top 10s on all radios, local artists. Youth, the youth mainly, if we're talking about youth. So we're encouraging local content on our radios.
Great.
Decent local content, decent.
There we go. Yes,
Okay,
perfect.
I would say World Radio Day, as a country, we need to introspect, we need to look at ourselves, we need to ensure that communities have access to information.
And Jonathan, you have the final word.
On a day like this, we rethink, we reconfigure. We know radio is a good story. It's a story of development.
And there you go. Wise words. The panel was engaging lively debate, the World Radio Day 2022. I am Owen Kaura, and this program was brought to you by the Media Alliance of, the Media Alliance of Zimbabwe and ZTN. Do stay tuned to more programming on ZTN.